Good evening. This is the April 23rd meeting of the San Francisco County Transportation Authority Community Advisory Committee, or CAC. I'm Kat Siegel, chair of the CAC. Our vice chair is Naj Daniels. I'd like to thank our clerk, Amy Sayung, and our operator, Daniela Rible, for this meeting. Madam Clerk, can you please do a roll call to ensure we have quorum, and then read an announcement about public comment?
CAC members, when I call your name, please say present. To ensure quorum, Member Bars. Bars absent. Vice Chair Daniels. Daniels absent. Member Ford. Ford absent. Member Imadadeen. Imadadeen absent. Member Kim.
Kim present.
Kim present. Member Levine. Levine present. Member Margarita. Margarita absent. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales present.
Milford Rosales present. Member Ng. Ng present. Ng present. Member Ortega. Ortega present. Ortega present. Chair Siegel.
Siegel present.
Siegel present. Chair Siegel, we have quorum. Public comment will be available for each item on this agenda via telephone by calling one of the numbers listed on the front of the agenda or by joining the meeting through the Zoom link. Once you join, you will be able to listen to the meeting as a participant. To make public comment on an item when the item is called, members of the public participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9. Do not press *9 again or you will be removed from the queue. When you are asked to unmute yourself, press *6 or the unmute button to unmute yourself. The live operator will advise you that you are allowed 2 minutes to speak. When your 2 minutes are up, we will move on to the next caller. Best practices are to speak slowly, clearly, and turn down the volume of any televisions or radios around you. Thank you. That concludes my announcement. I would also like to acknowledge Member Ford is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We can move on to item 2, which is the chair's report. I'm going to start off my remarks by highlighting a few public engagement opportunities that are included in the Executive Director's Report that was presented to the Transportation Authority Board yesterday. For folks listening, it is available on the agency website at sfcta.org/events. The Geary-Fillmore Underpass Community Planning Study is a federally funded project to reimagine transportation and land use along Geary and adjacent neighborhoods between Laguna and Divisadero. The Transportation Authority is building a community council that will work with the project team to give community input throughout the project and lead outreach within their communities. There will be up to 12 representatives selected for the council, and the agency is accepting applications now through Monday, May 19th. More information is on the project website at sfcta.org/Geary-Fillmore-Underpass. The other Transportation Authority effort with current engagement opportunities is the Vision Zero Freeway Ramps study, which we will hear about under item 8 on tonight's agenda. For folks listening who may not stay with us for the whole meeting, please check the project website at sfcta.org/vzramps for information about a multilingual survey that is now open in 3 town halls planned for May. The project team is seeking feedback on the study ramp locations to help develop safety improvements. Switching gears, this body has regularly been receiving updates on the transit fiscal cliff that is facing many Bay Area transit operators, particularly BART, Muni, and Caltrain. Under item 5 tonight, staff will provide a brief update on state authorizing legislation for a November 2026 regional transportation measure. Yesterday, the SFMTA board held a workshop which included an economic update from the city's chief economist, a presentation focusing on the next 2-year budget cycle, where the projected operating deficit is projected to be $320 million per year, and a review of the recommendations from the Muni Funding Working Group, which held its last meeting in March. SFMTA Director Julie Kirschbaum is expected to join the May 13th SFCTA board meeting to provide an abridged presentation on the upcoming budget cycle, where the large operating deficits are forecast to begin with the absence of federal and state relief funds, and she will summarize the Muni Funding Working Group findings. CAC members, staff, and public commenters in the room, please be sure to speak directly into the microphone so folks attending virtually can hear you. CAC members and folks in the hearing room, please turn off or silence all electronic devices and computer notifications during the meeting. That's it for announcements. Are there any questions or comments from CAC members on the chair's report? Not seeing any. Is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give public comment on the chair's report? Operator, is there any remote public comment on the chair's report?
There is no remote public comment on this report.
Great, thank you. We can move on to item 3, approve the minutes of the March 26, 2025 meeting. This is an action item. Do any CAC members have any questions or comments on the minutes? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment in the room on the minutes? Seeing any. Operator, is there any remote public comment?
There is no remote public comment.
Great. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes? Moved by Member Kim, seconded by Member Levine. Madam Clerk, would you please take a roll call vote?
On the motion to approve the minutes, Member Bars. Bars absent. Vice Chair Daniels. Daniels absent. Member Ford. Ford, aye. Ford, aye. Member Imadadine. Imadadine absent. Member Kim.
Kim, aye.
Kim, aye. Member Levine.
Levine, aye.
Levine, aye. Member Margarita. Margarita absent. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales, aye.
Milford Rosales, aye. Member Ng. Ng, aye. Ng, aye. Member Ortega. Ortega, aye. Ortega, aye. Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. There are 7 ayes. The minutes are approved.
Great, thank you. That puts us on item 4, adopt a motion of support to allocate $861,000 in Prop L funds with conditions for 2 requests and amend the Prop K standard grant agreement for the Ortega Street Improvements Project. And this is an action item. And Rachel Seberg, Transportation Planner, is with us to present this item.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Rachel Seberg. I'm a transportation planner with the Transportation Authority. And this presentation includes 2 Prop L allocation requests and 1 Prop K amendment request. The Embarcadero and Jefferson Quick Builds are the first of the 2 Prop L allocation requests. SFMTA is requesting $744,000 for funding to implement quick build safety improvements along Northern Embarcadero and Jefferson Street to bring traffic safety improvements to high-risk areas throughout the city. Improvements for the Jefferson Street Quick Build project are from Hyde Street to Powell Street. Specific quick build treatments may include refreshing crosswalks, installing turn calming treatments, introducing turn restrictions, and adding bike connections from Jefferson Street to North Point Street on side streets. These treatments would be more specifically identified and evaluated for feasibility during the project's design phase, which includes working with the merchant community and SF Port. The second project is the Northern Embarcadero Quick Build project, extending from Bay Street to Chestnut Street. Specific improvements include reconfiguring lanes from 3 to 2 lanes and upgrading the existing northbound bike lane to a protected bike lane. The project would build upon prior Embarcadero Enhancement Program outreach to engage key SF Port and neighborhood stakeholders throughout the design, implementation, and evaluation phases. And this project schedule is in coordination with the nearby SF Public Utilities Commission Outfall project. This request includes an amendment to the Safer and Complete Streets 5-year prioritization program to add the subject project with funds from the Active Communities Plan implementation placeholder, which is to implement recommendations from the Biking and Rolling Plan. SFMTA considers the implementation of these two quick build corridor projects to be in alignment with the biking and rolling plan, and both projects are included in the plan's North Star Index. The second Prop L request is to allocate $117,500 in Prop L funds for District 5 daylighting. SFMTA is requesting Prop L funds from the Neighborhood Transportation Program at the request of Commissioner Mahmood. This project will fund daylighting or painting curbs red at approximately 235 intersections throughout District 5, making it the first fully daylit district in the city. Daylighting typically involves restricting parking near intersections to create clearer sightlines, reducing the risk of collisions, and enhancing overall street safety. This request will build on work already funded through the Transportation Authority to daylight on the high-injury network and near school zones using TNC tax and sales tax funds. And you can find the full list of locations and a map of locations in your packet. And finally, the last request is from SFMTA to amend the Prop K Standard Grant Agreement for the SFMTA's Ortega Street Improvements and TIP Capital Project to update project details and to release $280,000 in sales tax funds held in reserve for construction. In March 2023, the Transportation Authority allocated $330,000 in Prop K sales tax funds to SFMTA for this project, including $50,000 for design and $280,000 for construction. Construction funds were placed on reserve pending the completion of design. At this point, design is done, the project was approved by the MTA board, and the SFMTA has started to implement the scope of work. The amendment to the Prop K grant agreement is to update the scope, schedule, budget, and funding plan to reflect completion of design and add construction phase details. This amendment is contingent upon board approval of the release of construction funds for which MTA has met the conditions. It's also contingent upon approval of a waiver to Prop K policy to allow retroactive reimbursement of construction costs prior to release of construction funds by the Transportation Authority Board. SFMTA started the construction phase in September 2024 following MTA board approval, but prior to board approval to release the construction funds. And the scope of work includes various traffic calming treatments like speed cushions and a raised crosswalk to prioritize a bicycle and pedestrian route on this neighborhood street by improving traffic safety, comfort, and calmness, and making the local street more inviting at a neighborhood scale. And with that, I can take any questions. We also have project managers from SFMTA available. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Member Kim.
Thank you for presentation. I have a question about daylighting. This is only the District 5, so I have a question. This one specifically requested by District 5 supervisor. And what about other districts? Right now, daylighting enforced, but there's no color painting. So do you have any plan for other districts?
Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Shannon Hay. I'm the
Go ahead, Shannon.
the program manager with SFMTA. We do plan on daylighting every district eventually with red paint. We are doing this work in 3 phases. The first phase was locations on the high injury network. That work is almost complete. The second phase is locations in school zones. Those are any crosswalk within 600 feet of a school in San Francisco, and that work is also ongoing. And then after that would be phase 3, in which we would be daylighting all of the rest of the intersections citywide. The third phase is unfunded. And this would essentially be moving District 5 to the front of the phase 3. So completing all of the locations in District 3.
Thank you. So,
Sorry, District 5.
yeah, and then sorry, my understand the phase 3 uses citywide rollout. Do you have any plan like 2026 or, and also when we do citywide rollout plan, we have 11 districts. So if we will finish District 5, we have 10 more districts, and then do you have any rollout plan? Maybe we cannot do it at the same time, right?
Yes, we anticipate completing all of the citywide daylighting by the end of 2026. So by the end of next year. But it would essentially have District 5 at the beginning of the group, and then completing work throughout the rest of the districts in the city. And our plan is to not enforce daylighting with parking citations until curbs are painted red. And that is essentially just a decision we made to make sure that everyone is aware of the new change. So that would mean that we're giving out warning tickets until a particular curb is painted red.
Oh, thank you, Francis. Could you tell me again? You said MTA doesn't enforce the citation until everybody aware and then color painted. Could you tell me the date? Enforcement date.
The enforcement date would vary. So there's no citywide enforcement date, and there is no situation in which SFMTA will be issuing fee-based parking citations for parking in a daylighting zone that is not marked with red paint. However, as soon as red paint appears at an intersection, if someone is parking in that zone, that's when a citation could be issued. Up until then, SFMTA parking control officers are going out and in many occasions issuing no fee warning violations to let people know about the change, but there won't be any fee-based citations until a particular corner is painted red. And that work is ongoing throughout the city right now.
Thank you.
Member Ortega?
Hi, I have a question regarding the Ortega Street, which is a great name, by the way. Gotta love it. Your weird fun fact is I'm actually going to get married in the Presidio at the Ortega Ballroom, and that is in no small part because of it. But that is your side details, not actually the real question, I promise. So I had regarding the Ortega Street improvements. So I have two questions. The first is you have indicated that there will be one added raised crosswalk, and then in a bunch of streets, looking through the presentation, you're adding in, I believe it's continental crosswalks. Perhaps I cannot read. That is very possible. And so my question is, when do you choose to do a raised crosswalk, and how effective are crosswalk painted on the street in helping traffic calming? It's actually two questions.
We have Brian Liang, the project manager, who will take that question.
Yeah, hi, good evening, committee members. Brian Liang, project manager for the Ortega Street Improvements Project. So two-part question regarding the raised crosswalk. It is pretty effective. It's one of our common traffic calming devices to control speed on a corridor. The reason why it was selected for the intersection that it was due to some outreach that we did with APG Middle School, APG Middle School and Sunset Elementary that are pretty close to that intersection. A lot of parents that we talked to at those schools repeated speeding as a major concern down the corridor, especially coming off of Sunset Boulevard. So that is why we proposed and got approved the raised crosswalk at that location. In terms of the continental crosswalks, so that's basically the ladder crosswalks that you see throughout most of the city, which is actually the current standard for crosswalks nowadays. So when we stripe a crosswalk, it's usually a continental crosswalk. So on Ortega Street, there were a bunch of crosswalks that were still using the standard crosswalk, which is just the two bars. And then there were a number of unpainted crosswalks. So crosswalks is just a tool to help alert drivers, indicate that they're approaching a crossing location. Was that both the questions?
So part of it, yeah, a little bit. So part of it is really that we're just also upgrading all the existing crosswalks to match the new standard. Is that a fair?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, great. That helps. And the reasoning why we have a raised crosswalk at that location is helpful. I don't live over there, sadly. I tried. Thank you.
Of course.
Member Bars?
Thank you. I have the same question for both the Ortega project and for the Northern Embarcadero and Jefferson Quick Builds. I'm just curious if there are any projections about the number of people who will benefit or be impacted by either of these projects.
I guess I can go first. In terms of projections, we do know that Ortega, is one of the primary bikeways in the Sunset. So by improving safety and comfort, we do expect an increase in the volume of people bicycling on the corridor. And we also know that just from our conversations with the two schools and various residents on the corridor, that a lot of people do walk on it to access their local destinations. So our hope is that the safety and comfort improvements will encourage more active transportation along the corridor.
You don't have an estimate, it sounds like, Brian. Or
I do not.
you?
Yes, I do not.
Okay. Right.
And then we have Casey Hildreth for the Northern Embarcadero and Jefferson Street.
Hello. Thanks for the question. I will say that we have estimates of, let's say, bicycle travel specifically along the waterfront. About 2,000 people a day, or 2,000 trips a day occur along the waterfront. How many of those are reaching up into Fisherman's Wharf? We don't know precisely, but with the pedestrian improvements that we're hoping to achieve and an additional bikeway connectivity, I think we're trying to draw some or most of those 2,000 trips further north, and then supporting the thousands, tens of thousands of trips we'll make to the Fisherman's Wharf area. Whether they're locals or tourists. Sure, a member of the port could probably provide a more number, but we know it's that area of town is quite busy with visitors as well as residents and commuters. So I think we're hitting a number of segments of folks that use our city's transportation network.
Thank you.
I have a question about the District 5 daylighting. I'm very supportive, really thrilled to see this given how pedestrian heavy and transit rider heavy District 5 is. I was wondering if the project manager could provide an estimate, if you have any, of how much more would it cost to add like a painted safety zone compared with painting a curb at key intersections, and has there been any consideration after this first phase to make those treatments more robust through either painted safety zones or adding a bike rack in the space or something to make the space a bit more self-enforcing?
Yeah. So I can say that I don't necessarily have the cost for additional PSZs, painted safety zones, at particular intersections. They're relatively a low-cost item, though. I would say that generally what we're doing right now is focusing on creating the space associated with daylighting. So just creating more space at intersections that improve visibility. We haven't necessarily thought about how we're going to allow things in that space, whether it can be activated by community members or used in some other way. But those are conversations that we're having internally at SFMTA, because we do want to be able to use essentially the public space that's being created by daylighting. But I don't necessarily have a cost impact for that yet.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Really glad to hear that those conversations are happening. I think District 5 is a very supportive community for that kind of activation. Do any other members have questions or comments? Is there any public comment in the room on this item? Is there any remote public comment on this item?
There is no remote public comment for item 4.
Great, public comment on this item is closed. Can I get a motion and a second on this item? Moved by Member Ford, seconded by Member Ng. Approve? Yes. Madam Clerk, can we please get a roll call vote?
On the motion to approve item 4, Member Bars.
Bars, aye.
Bars, aye. Vice Chair Daniels. Daniels absent. Member Ford.
Ford, aye.
Ford, aye. Member Imadadeen. Imadadeen absent. Member Kim.
Kim, aye.
Kim, aye. Member Levine.
Levine, aye.
Levine, aye. Member Margarita. Margarita absent. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales, aye.
Milford Rosales, aye. Member Ng.
Ng, aye.
Ng, aye. Member Ortega.
Ortega, aye.
Ortega, aye. Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. There are 8 ayes. The motion is approved.
Great, thank you. That puts us on item 5, which is the state and federal legislation update. And this is an information item. And Martin Reyes, Principal Transportation Planner, is here with us to present this item.
Thank you, Chair Siegel. Good evening, CAC members. Tonight's legislative update will be focused on Senate Bill 63, which is the Regional Transportation Revenue Measure Bill introduced by Senators Wiener and Arreguín. Yesterday, our board took final action to adopt a support position on the bill. I provided some details on the bill last month, but just as a high-level recap, to refresh everyone's memories, this bill would authorize a sales tax revenue measure to be placed on the ballot in November 2026. There are 3 counties required to participate at a half-cent rate. That's Alameda, Contra Costa, San Francisco. San Mateo, Santa Clara can opt in. Revenues are intended to primarily fund transit operations for the 4 major operators, AC Transit, BART, Caltrain, and Muni. There's also funding for transit transformation. The expenditure plan itself is to be determined. The 5 counties are actually going to be meeting over the next few months to help develop what's a new acronym called TFRIP, the Transit Operations Financial Responsibility and Implementation Plan, and that will help inform the expenditure plan that's supposed to be done by July 31 of this year. SB 63 was heard in 2 Senate committees this week, the Senate Transportation Committee and the Revenue and Taxation Committee. We do expect some amendments to come out later this week. One of those amendments, we expect that the TFRIP language will actually be taken out. According to the authors, now that the TFRIP process is underway, the actual language in the bill itself is not needed. The other amendment that we expect to come out is clarifications that the provisions of the bill will only apply to counties that participate in the regional measure, and that's a response to concerns raised by MTC commissioners last month. With that, I'm happy to dive deeper into the bill if the committee would like more details on the bill provisions. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Member Levine?
Thank you for your presentation. I actually am not questioning the present presentation. I'm more concerned about whether there's been any movement on providing more local control over autonomous vehicles. I know there were a couple of pieces of legislation last year at the state, and they apparently died, or they were tabled, I can't remember. But in any event, have they been resurrected, and has anybody taken on the challenge of getting more support for the communities in controlling these autonomous vehicles?
And I might ask for Maria to help refresh my memory. I don't think there are any bills as of now that are trying to do what was done last year around data and local control, so nothing on the docket right now.
Bummer.
Member Ford?
Thanks for the presentation on SB 63. I noticed in the memo that there's AB 939, a safe, sustainable, traffic reducing transportation bond. And how does that revenue raising, for lack of a better word, measure interact with AB?
Good question. Thank you, Member Ford. So that is a statewide general obligation bond that was, I believe, sponsored by LA Metro. We've heard in recent days that that may not actually move forward. And so we're trying to get more details on sort of the backstory behind that and just confirming that. But if it did move forward, it would mean that there would be, in addition to a potential Bay Area transportation revenue measure on the ballot, there could also be a statewide GO bond measure on the ballot as well. So everybody would be voting on those two things in the Bay Area at the same time, potentially.
Member Bars?
I just wanted to ask a quick follow-up question to what he just said.
Yes.
Sorry. You said that they have potential to be on the ballot at the same time, but what, I guess, it's a $20 billion bond. Is that for then the entire state use of transit? Sorry, I just, a little more on what that actually, 20 billion is going to do, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes. So generally, the GO bonds can be used for capital projects, and in this case, it could be used towards projects across the state, transportation capital projects across the state. I don't believe there's a specific expenditure plan for it yet, though. So the actual projects it would be going to are not yet designated, and it's not clear that it's actually moving forward at this point. So we're not sure if there will even be an expenditure plan developed for it.
Member Bars?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. My question, I wanted to make sure I wanted to clarify something, and then I have a question about SB. So I think what I heard you say was that the TFRIP requirements will be removed. That's been amended. Did I hear that correctly?
We expect amendments to come out likely on Friday.
Okay, and you said that that's because it would essentially be redundant with something else. What's the other thing?
So I think after the legislators, as part of discussions for this week's committee meetings, it was decided that the TFRIP language is no longer needed, mainly because the language that was originally inserted has already served its purpose. Essentially, it was intended to have local agencies start these discussions between the counties on what the expenditure plan essentially should look like. And that process is happening. So our agency has been participating in meetings with Alameda County Transportation Commission, CCTA, SamTrans, and VTA to start discussing what TFRIP should look like to help inform the expenditure plan. So now that process is underway, the legislators have agreed that the language in the bill is no longer needed, and it was sort of the vision to begin with that the TFRIP language wouldn't be needed in sort of like later versions of the bill. So that's the reason behind it.
If I may also, on behalf of the operator, you really got to love your microphone so people who are joining virtually can hear you.
Okay, thank you. How's this? Yeah, okay. Closer. Okay, thank you for that clarification. That was very helpful. So now my question is about so the language here, or excuse me, the description of SB 63 in the table provided said that there'll be initiatives included in the 2021 Bay Area Transit Transformation Action Plan. Could you just explain how those initiatives would be funded from a regional measure?
Sure. The bill as written specifies that up to 10% of revenue measure funding can go to MTC to deliver transit transformation initiatives listed in the plan you just mentioned. It's not clear actually just yet what the final percentage dedication to transit transformation would be. The bill only states up to 10%, so we expect amendments in the future that clarify that. It is also not clear exactly what projects or programs that would fund. One of the things in the works right now as part of the TFIR process is that MTC is developing potential expenditure plans for that up to 10% set aside. We have not seen what that looks like yet, but we do know that things that are included in the plan are customer-facing transit improvements, things like mapping and wayfinding, fare integration initiatives. There's some light capital sorts of projects like transit priority. So there's a wide range of project types contained in the Transit Transformation Action Plan that we could see. We may see some example expenditure plans come from MTC over the next few weeks.
Great, thanks. Member Milford Rosales.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to confirm this since I didn't quite get clarity looking through the minutes last week. But right now for the Senate bill, that's one where the counties are going to be authorized to add their own ballot measure by state bill, correct?
What would happen is, well, there are two routes. The bill authorizes creation of a new district called the Transportation Revenue Measure District. By default, that will include 3 counties. Alameda, Contra Costa, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara can opt in, so it can go up to 5 counties. Once that geography is established and the bill is, passed, either MTC could place a measure on the ballot, and then based on current bill language, the counties would be required, essentially the boards of supervisors would be required to place that ballot language on each of the counties' ballots. So there isn't really any discretion. The counties are sort of required to put it on the ballot using MTC's written language. The other path that this bill would authorize is a citizen initiative. So in that case, I believe it would be similar, because it authorizes a citizen initiative for the geography. If the initiative qualifies, the counties would also be required to place it on their ballot.
So my curiosity here is on the citizen initiative front, that would need to be driven, there would need to be efforts in each individual county to gather the sufficient signatures to put it on that county's ballot, correct?
My understanding is that there isn't necessarily a signature threshold per county. It would be a signature threshold for the district. So you would need a certain number of signatures across, let's say it's all 5 counties participating in the district. You need to meet the threshold for those 5 counties. And unless, the bill changes, there wouldn't necessarily be a minimum threshold per county.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very good to know. I was kind of confused on how the citizen initiative angle might work, and frankly, I was concerned that it would basically just be punting all the work to advocates, because at one point it looked like it could have done that. So thank you very much for that clarification.
If I may, through the chair, just to clarify, because you have some really great questions. When Martin said the state bill would authorize the citizen initiative, what it's really doing, because you can do that anyway, is creating the district of the 3 counties, or if the other 2 opt in, and then the citizens, if they choose, can a measure on in that district, as opposed to going to each individual county, which would be a nightmare.
is the bill expected to specify what percentage of the money goes to which county or how it's divided?
Yes, it's expected that before the bill's final form, however you want to say it, that there would be an expenditure plan essentially spelled out in the bill. So there would be either specific dollar amounts or specific percentages dedicated to the operators and potentially transit transformation too.
Great, thanks. Are there any other questions or comments from members on this item? Is there any public comment in the room on this item? Operator, is there any remote public comment on this item?
No, there is no remote public comment. Also, I just want to give a gentle reminder to please speak into the mic because I'm still having a hard time hearing some folks. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. Appreciate it. Great. Well then, thank you so much for the presentation. Appreciate it. We'll move on to item 6. Adopt a motion of support to amend the adopted fiscal year 2024-2025 budget to decrease revenues by $3.5 million and decrease expenditures by $8.9 million for a total net increase in fund balance of $5.3 million. And this is an action item. And Lily Yu, Finance Manager, is here with us to present this item.
Good evening, Chair Siegel and CAC members. Lily Yu, Finance Manager. Today I'm here to present our proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget amendment. This item starts on page 81 of your packet. The budget revision is an opportunity for us to take stock of significant changes subsequent to the original adoption of the annual budget and adjust for material unforeseen expenditures. We're pleased to report this year's proposed amendment is a pretty simple one. Attachment 2 of the memo provides a comparison of revenues and expenditures between the current year adopted budget and the proposed budget amendment. And the last 2 columns show the difference between the 2 years in dollars and percentages. Fiscal year 2024-25 covers the period from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. Overall, we are proposing to amend the adopted fiscal year 25 budget to decrease revenues by $3.5 million, decrease expenditures by $8.9 million, for a total net increase in fund balance of $5.4 million. And one of the many roles we hold is to operate as the Treasure Island Mobility Management Agency, or TIMA. Budgeted revenues and capital project expenditures of $3.5 million for TIMA will be deferred to next fiscal year. And this is mainly related to 2 large efforts under the TIMA program. First, the original budget assumed construction activities for the Treasure Island Ferry Terminal Enhancements Project that would begin in fiscal year 24-25. However, efforts to finalize the construction cost estimates, the drawings, and to comply with Buy America requirements took longer than anticipated, and now our current projection is to advertise for construction services in late April 2025 and award a contract in July 2025. Second, the work on the TIMA Toll and Affordability Program will resume in fiscal year 25-26. This work is funded by a federal grant passed to us from the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency with matching funds from the Treasure Island developer. There's no loss in grant funds in either case, but we're pushing out the work to next fiscal year. Budget revisions for TIMA will also be presented as a separate item at future TIMA committee and TIMA board meetings. The proposed budget amendment also decreases capital project costs for the Traffic Congestion Mitigation Tax, or TNC tax, of $5.4 million, from $9.9 million in the original budget to $4.5 million. The funds were allocated to SFMTA's 2 projects, and they were slow to seek reimbursements. These are SFMTA's application-based residential traffic calming program, which is facing some project delivery issues, and SFMTA's Vision Zero Quick Build program. This project is progressing, but SFMTA has been slow to submit reimbursement requests. And that concludes the budget amendment item. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much for the presentation. Member Milford Rosales, was that your from earlier? Okay, great. Member Levine?
Quick question. What is the relationship between TIMA and TIDA? And is there any, first of all, and if there is, TIDA controls development on the island itself. So what is the relationship with TIMA?
The Transportation Authority has been designated as the Treasure Island Mobility Management Agency, or TIMA. So our board, there's multiple hats, and one of them is acting as the TIMA board as well. TIDA, I believe, is a city department, and so within the city and county of San Francisco. And we work cooperatively with TIDA, but TIDA is separate from TIMA.
So I assume that at some point there are conflicts about how to proceed about certain issues, and where does control lie? Is it with TIDA or with TIMA?
Hi, everyone. Rachel Hyatt. I'm the Deputy Director for Planning at SFCTA. And TIMA has very prescribed specific responsibilities and authorities for implementing the transportation program that the Board of Supervisors approved for the overall development project, back over a decade ago, 15 years ago. So it's very specific responsibilities to implement and operate the transportation improvements that are called for on the island. TIDA has much broader authority and more overarching authority over the whole development project, land use, in other types of infrastructure and utilities, and so forth. So we do execute and memorandum of agreement or understanding with TIDA that lay out our different responsibilities.
Those are the words I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Member Ortega?
Hello. Rachel asks about finance things again, your favorite segment. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So we've deferred, I'm going to use that word here, deferred $3.5 million that were in this year's budget into next year's budget because we are delayed on the project. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Okay. And so then there's another section of funds that was also deferred. Is that it? What is this? $8 million coming from again? Sorry.
The $8 million decrease or deferral of funds from fiscal year 24-25 to 25-26 comprises of both the TIMA of $3.5 million and then also the TNC tax expenditures of $5.4 million.
That's the $5.4 million that we are also deferring until next year because we haven't awarded the contract yet. Or is that TIMA? Sorry, this is why it's basics 101 with me here.
The $3.5 million is the grant funds and expenditures are being deferred to next fiscal year. Anna can talk a little bit about the TNC tax expenditures.
Right, so those are what we budget for expenditures for the projects that have grants from the TNC tax. So if they are the invoicing rate for the quick builds and then the delivery rate for the traffic calming program.
Okay, so those are the things where you've been saying that they're slow to basically ask for payment.
Correct. Oh, slow to ask for payment on the quick build side
On the quick build
and slow to deliver on the traffic calming side.
Okay, so it's one of them hasn't asked to be paid yet, and the other one hasn't done the work to get paid.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for coming to my Rachel Needs to Understand Finance 101.
Member Ford?
Evening. So alluding to that traffic calming question, the serious project delivery problems, are these projects that it's an application based no residents are applying for, or is it that they're failing to deliver the project and so the project will be delivered in 2027, And then I have a second question.
The grants that are under the TNC tax, so what you're seeing reflected in the budget, are for the traffic calming program that was funded for fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, so current year also, and last year. The program is a rolling program, and so it was proposed to be have concurrent implementation as SFMTA continued to accept applications. I think that SFMTA will speak to this at an upcoming meeting, ideally next month, because that's not really what's been happening. Is the implementation has been delayed, and MTA has been having to focus on a backlog from prior year applications. So, but MTA will be here next month to speak to this issue.
Okay, then we'll wait with bated breath for next month. And then the other one is, this is more of a 101. What's the congestion management agency, and which taxes did we vote for that fund that? And the reason I ask is that that agency seems to be funding a lot of Yerba Buena Island development, and I don't remember a Yerba Buena Island development tax on the ballot.
If I may, Member Ford, that's good because there wasn't one. So the Congestion Management Agency, or CMA, is formed by state language. Basically, urban areas of California were set up to try and link our transportation funding decisions to managing congestion. I could go on, but the key part of that, there is no money directly associated with that. However, as the Congestion Management Agency, we do certain things. One of them is like our long-range countywide transportation plan, or San Francisco Transportation Plan, which Rachel and her staff will come back soon to talk to you about. The other is MTC, which is kind of like us for the 9 Bay Area County. Rather than working with 100+ individual jurisdictions, we'll work with one sort of liaison in each county, and that county is the Congestion Management Agency if they have one. As Congestion Management Agency, here's where we get to the money part. We get to either prioritize money for certain funding from the state and the federal government that flow through MTC. So sometimes we get to make the final decision following MTC's rules for that money. Sometimes we make recommendations to MTC and toss it in a pot and they pick. So no taxes. And then lastly, if we secure grant funding, which we have for projects like the large ramp projects on Yerba Buena Island, for accounting purposes, and Lily can put this in proper accounting language if you want, we list those under our Congestion Management Agency function because they're not sales tax projects.
Member Bars?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. And Member Ford took my substantive question, so thank you, Member Ford. I'll just ask the clarifying question. I just want to make sure I understand that the TIMA project that is delayed is the improvements to the ferry terminal on Treasure Island. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that is delayed, and I think I heard you say it had to do with some procurement issues. The Buy America provision was hard. Sorry, I don't mean to be dismissive. I just mean, like, I think I heard you say the Buy America, like, there was an issue there. It was an issue with the drawings, I think. Could you just say that again? Like, what made it late?
Sure.
And I also have our project manager, Jana Waldman, here to explain further. But the delay was related to finalizing the construction cost estimates, the final drawings, and also compliance with Buy America requirements.
All right, thank you. Member Ortega?
Okay. What is Buy America? Yeah, I have a hunch I know what it is, but a 5-second overview for this. Really, the shortest answer you got. I promise we can talk more later if I want a more in-depth answer.
Under federal requirements, local agencies or implementing agencies are required to purchase using using America-made products. And Jana, do you have anything else? Are you able to add more to this?
Or if Jana can't, this is Maria, I can. It can just get pretty complicated because sometimes, imagine, federal people make up rules. Certain percentages of something have to be made in America. Sometimes they're hard to procure. So it adds to the complexity of putting together the documents and bid materials.
I can definitely understand that. I thought it was Buy America, where it was BUY, but I wanted to double check. So thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from members? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment in the room on this item?
No, there's no
Is there
public.
any remote?
Oh, sorry. There's no remote public
great.
comment on this item.
Okay, great. Public comment on this item is closed then. Can I get a motion and a second on item 6? Member Levine first, and Member Milford Rosales. Madam Clerk, can we please get a roll call vote?
On the motion to approve item 6, Member Bars.
Bars, aye.
Bars, aye. Vice Chair Daniels. Daniels absent. Member Ford.
Ford, aye.
Ford, aye. Member Imadadeen. Imadadeen absent. Member Kim.
Kim, aye.
Kim, aye. Member Levine.
Levine, aye.
Levine, aye. Member Margarita.
Margarita, aye.
Margarita, aye. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales, aye.
Milford Rosales, aye. Member Ng.
Ng, aye.
Ng, aye. Member Ortega.
Ortega, aye.
Ortega, aye. Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. There are 9 ayes. The motion is approved.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you again for the presentation. That puts us on item 7, the preliminary fiscal year 2025-2026 budget and work program. This is an information item, and we have Lily Yu again, Finance Manager, present this item too.
All right, Lily Yu, Finance Manager, and I'm back again to present our preliminary annual budget and work program for fiscal year 2025 and 2026. This is an information item and will return next month to present and seek approval for the proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget and work program. This item starts on page 89 of your packet. For fiscal year 25-26, this covers July July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. The Transportation Authority administers the sales tax program. We function as the congestion management agency for San Francisco. We administer the $10 Prop AA vehicle registration fee, the traffic congestion mitigation tax or TNC tax. We act as the local program manager for the Transportation Fund for Clean Air or TFCA, and we operate as the Treasure Island Mobility Management Agency or TIMA. Our main source of revenue is the half-cent transportation sales tax. This slide shows how much we've collected in sales tax revenues over the last 8 years, with budgeted information for fiscal year 2025 and 2026. Looking back at recent years, fiscal years 2020 and 2021 were the years that were heavily impacted by the pandemic. Following that, fiscal years 2022 and 2023 were our main years of pandemic recovery. And moving on, we're seeing a more flattening level of sales tax revenues. And based on sales tax revenues collected through January 2025 and in coordination with the city's controller's office, we project sales tax revenues for fiscal year 25-26 to remain relatively flat and in line with fiscal year 24-25 budgeted revenues. While inflation rates are anticipated to rise, we're also seeing increased costs in essential non-taxable sectors, including housing, medical, and energy expenses, which are limiting disposable income and reducing discretionary fund spending on taxable goods. Also, because of the uncertainty of the current economic conditions and the impacts to sales tax revenues, we're holding this revenue stream steady and will continue to closely monitor it. Total revenues for fiscal year 25-26 are budgeted at $196.7 million, and this is an increase of $6.9 million compared to fiscal year 24-25 amended budget. This slide shows the proposed amended fiscal year 25 budget estimates in gray columns, which was previously presented in the last item, and then now the preliminary fiscal year 26 budget in blue columns. The increase is mainly attributed to the increase in program revenues. So I talked about the sales tax revenues, and now moving on to vehicle registration fees. The budget for vehicle registration fees are in line with current year revenue estimates based on the revenues collected through February 2025. And this reflects a stable number of vehicles registered in San Francisco, having seen declining population trends during and following the pandemic. Traffic congestion mitigation tax are projected to be at $8.8 million, which is a 3.8% higher than the amended budget for fiscal year 25. And the increase is related to an increased number of rides, as well as the expiration of a temporarily discounted tax rate for zero emissions on TNC rides. Our estimates are also aligned with the city's controller's office. Program revenues are projected at $73.1 million, which reflects an increase of $6.1 million compared to the amended budget revenues. Program revenues are mostly project-specific under our role as the Congestion Management Agency. And this includes federal, state, and regional grant funding for projects like the Yerba Buena Island West Side Bridges, Hillcrest Road Improvement Construction Projects, and also the design work on the YBI multi-use path. The increase for fiscal year 25-26 is largely due to new grant funding for Treasure Island Connects project, increased grant funding for the Treasure Island Ferry Terminal Enhancement project that was postponed or deferred from fiscal year 25, and new grant funding for the San Francisco Network Management Study and Bayview Street Safety and Truck Relief Studies. Total expenditures are projected to be at $248.2 million, a decrease of $9.8 million compared to fiscal year 24-25. Of the total expenditure budget, our capital project costs are the ones that are mostly awarded to agencies like the SFMTA. Capital project costs are budgeted at $210.6 million. And these, the capital project costs are budgeted to decrease by almost $9 million compared to fiscal year 2025. which is mainly due to lower capital expenditures for the CMA and Prop AA programs. Several projects have progressed past their most active periods, including the YBI Hillcrest Road Improvement Project under the CMA program, and Public Works' Mission and Geneva Paving and Oakdale Lighting Improvement Projects under the Prop AA programs. Our administrative operating expenditures include personnel and non-personnel expenditures, which is budgeted at $14.1 million for fiscal year 2026. And this is an increase of almost $550,000 compared to fiscal year 2025. Operating expenditures include our rent, personnel, administrative, and commissioner-related expenditures. For fiscal year 2026, we included a budget of 44 full-time positions to support the agency's work program. And the increase of administrative operating expenditures is due to the hiring of 2 new positions. We have a highway program manager and a transportation planner, as well as rising healthcare costs and the replacement of our conference room audiovisual equipment. We're also budgeting $23.5 million for debt service costs. This is a decrease from fiscal year 2025 by $1.5 million. This line item assumes fees and interest payments related to the expected drawdown of our revolving credit loan agreement and a scheduled bond principal payment of $15.7 million. The decrease of debt service costs is related to lower finance costs associated with entering into a new revolving credit agreement and our first drawdown of that agreement, which was completed in fiscal year 2025 and no longer needed for the upcoming fiscal year. Since our revenues are at $197 million and our expenditures are budgeted at $248 million, we anticipate the need to draw down $110 million against our revolving credit agreement this year in order to fund our expenditures. Back in October 2024, we entered into a new revolving credit loan agreement with U.S. Bank for $185 million. In fiscal year 2025, we budgeted to draw down $65 million. And now in fiscal year 2026, we anticipate needing $110 million. And this leaves another $10 million left for us to be able to borrow if needed. The revolving credit loan agreement supports the Transportation Authority's interim borrowing program on a pay-go basis. And we'll continue to monitor capital spending closely with our project sponsors, and we'll seek your approval and the board's approval when we need to draw down from the revolving credit agreement. Our sales tax capital project costs are budgeted at $127 million, and this makes up a little more than half of our total expenditure budget. The primary drivers for sales tax capital expenditures for fiscal year 25-26 include the BART core capacity program fleet, SFMTA's motor coach and battery electric bus procurements, and SFMTA's paratransit operations. Capital project costs for the Prop AA program are budgeted at $7.5 million, and the primary drivers for this line item includes Public Works' 8th Street, Clay Street, and Leavenworth Street pavement renovation project, and Hunters Point Central Waterfront and Patrol Hill pavement renovation projects. The largest capital project expenditures budgeted under the Congestion Management Agency programs include mainly the YBI projects that I discussed earlier. Fiscal year 2026 will be another high construction year for us. So in the next several slides, I'll go over major highlights and notable efforts within our very robust work program for the upcoming fiscal year. Many of these efforts will be familiar to you. Our work program narrative is also included as an attachment to this memo item. For our congestion management work, we'll release an online interactive version of the 2025 Congestion Management Program that will allow the public to interactively access key performance metrics. We'll complete the TDM market analysis and TDM strategic plan update, and we'll also continue planning and coordinating with the region for the San Francisco freeway system. In addition, we'll continue to advance the Treasure Island Mobility Management Program in our role as TIMA focusing on implementing an electric ferry business plan and implementing elements of the Federal Environmental Protection Act grant scope, pending resumption of the EPA grant. We'll also substantially complete the current update of the San Francisco Transportation Plan, or SFTP 2050 Plus, with an anticipated adoption in summer 2026. This update incorporates Plan Bay Area 2050 Plus revisions to projected population growth and reduced revenues to incorporate post-pandemic travel behaviors. Various planning studies are underway and are anticipated to be completed in fiscal year 2026, including the Gary 19th Avenue Subway and Regional Connection Study, the Bayview Caltrain Station Location Study, the Brotherhood Way Safety and Circulation Plan, and the West Side Transportation Network Planning. Other planning efforts that are continuing include the Gary Fillmore Underpass Community Planning Study, the Vision Zero Ramps Phase 3 Study, and the Laguna Honda Gondola Feasibility Study. The latter two are planned to be completed in fiscal year 25-26. Several neighborhood transportation program projects that we're also leading are planned for completion, including those in Districts 2, 4, 6, and 7. And we'll continue to work with our board to scope potential planning efforts for the neighborhood transportation plans related to Districts 9 and 11, and seek NTIP and/or other funding to advance recommendations on Districts 5 and 7. Our Technology, Data, and Analysis Division provides travel forecasting and analysis on several of our studies, including the SFTP Plus and SF Freeway Network Study, as well as to city departments like SFMTA. We'll enhance our initial implementation of the next SF CHAMP model and share analysis from our comprehensive 2023 Household Travel Diary Survey in collaboration with MTC and the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. And we'll continue to work with our board, city departments, and with industry, regulatory, and community stakeholders on San Francisco's Autonomous Vehicle Work Program. In terms of funding, we have ongoing work on implementing Prop L, as this remains one of our agency's core functions. We'll continue to administer the Prop AA vehicle registration fee, TFCA, and TNC tax programs. This coming year, we'll work with project sponsors and MTC to advance candidates for the next funding cycles of SB1 programs and to roll out Regional Measure 3. With the support of our financial advisors, we'll continue to manage our debt program, and we're preparing to seek approval to draw down for an amount up to $110 million on the $185 million revolving credit loan agreement when funds are needed, which could be as soon as summer 2025. In terms of capital projects, we're leading the construction efforts for various YBI projects. All of these projects are progressing on time and on budget. We're also leading several project developments, including the design efforts for the YBI multi-use path, the I-280 Ocean Avenue southbound off-ramp realignment, and advancing the Pennsylvania Avenue Extension bridging study. Major efforts under project delivery support are listed on this slide, including progressing the Portal or Downtown Rail extension toward full funding and construction, planning and project development for the 4th and King rail yards, and also providing enhanced oversight and planning support to SFMTA for the Muni Metro System, the Patrol and Presidio Yard modernization projects. In terms of transparency and accountability, this represents ongoing agency operational activities and administrative processes. Notable items for this year include refining our outreach and communications techniques with a focus on accessibility, racial equity, and engaging equity priority communities. Finally, I'll go over our budget process through adoption. This is our first round with presenting the budget as an information item to this committee, and then we'll present to the board on May 14th. After that, we'll come back and present the final proposed budget to this group on May 28th. The June 10th board meeting will serve as the public hearing on the final proposed budget, with final approval by the board on June 24th. And this concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Member Ortega?
Hi, so I have a question regarding the debt. You want to draw down 110 million this year, or the next fiscal year, I should rephrase that, as early as summer, which leaves us just $10 million left on this revolving credit agreement. So my actual question, other than that sounds very scary, is what happens next? You have like $10 million when we look at like the expenditures of our capital projects is really not a lot. So how is the process to get more credit if we need it? And or what is the options when we have to look at cutting projects? Like how does that process come about if we cannot get another revolving credit agreement? Does that question make any sense?
Yes, so we'll closely monitor our capital project expenditures in coordination with discussions with our project sponsors. But for this fiscal year, we had requested to draw down $65 million, but when we actually draw down, it's in separate tranches based on the actual needs of the invoices that are coming in. And we do anticipate planning the need to potentially issue another bond against our sales tax. Maria, do you have anything more to add?
Sure. It's always glad to have you, Member Ortega, make us answer our questions on this. So as Lily said, if we approve this in the budget, first of all, the larger number is to balance our budget based on projected capital expenditures for the year. Anna and her team, working with Lily and all those folks, we do watch very carefully to see how projects are progressing and incurring expenses, when they're actually going to bill us. Oftentimes, they will bill other grants first or sources because they have timely use of fund deadlines, and we love that. We sit on our money longer. But when we see a bunch coming in that is going to exceed our cash on hand, we anticipate that, and we'll go back through you and the board to ask for approval to draw down a portion of the revolver. And as Lily said last year, we didn't ask for it all at once. We asked for a piece, and then we don't issue it all at once either. We like to do just-in-time debt issuance to minimize costs. But when we draw that fully down or get close, like 10 million is spitting distance to the end, we will likely do what we did in the past. We analyze market conditions closely and compare short-term debt, like similar to the revolving line of credit, with bonds. And if it makes sense at that time to issue a bond, we will go through the whole due diligence effort and come back to the CAC and the board to do so. As you know, our budget tends to be more on the reasonable but still optimistic side. Things always happen. Projects will get delayed. Maybe other grants come, which often happens too, and those things tend to slow down how fast we have to pay out cash. But these are great questions, and we have got lots of checks and balances in place.
Member Levine?
Thank you. On page 117 of your presentation, total projected revenues of basically 197 million. Of that, you have federal grant funding of almost 19%, or 37.4 million. Is, given market conditions and the conditions in Washington, is that a realistic figure at this point? And can it reasonably be expected that that will, in fact, materialize?
Thank you for the question. For the grants that are included in this budget, they have all been obligated and secured, and we have not heard from our sponsor agencies, our grantor agencies, on whether or not there is a risk currently, except for the Treasure Island Connects grant from the Environmental Protection Agency. For that grant, the EPA has notified us that the grant is on pause, and we're proceeding cautiously in fiscal year 24-25. We're not really doing much work, but we anticipate that the pause may be lifted, and so we're budgeting for that effort. But should anything happen, we'll come back with a budget amendment.
Member Ford?
Thanks. And Member Levine, that was a great question, which sort of also alludes to, I think the observation that I'm having is that we have an expenditure of $250 million and a revenue of $200 million, almost a 25% deficit. That seems like a high running deficit to me. It fully exhausts revolving credit. And we just had a presentation about drawing down and moving the budget moving projects so the budgets would balance. And I didn't see anything in this presentation about moving projects so the budget would balance. And I guess I wonder why you're not projecting revenues to increase in the next few years. We don't have a new federal administration in the next few years. Like, where is the effort to balance the budget?
For our expenditures in fiscal year 25-26, we are budgeting a decrease in expenditures across multiple of our program funds. In particular, the sales tax program has decreased. I believe in fiscal year 24-25, we budgeted $133 million. Based on cash flow schedules and anticipated reimbursement requests, we're bringing that down to $125 million. Also, across the other programs, we have closely looked at the cash flow schedules in consultation with our partner agencies to develop the proposed or preliminary budget estimates.
Is the big number of revenues and the big number of expenditures, am I misunderstanding them like they're not the same time frame? Because that sales tax reduction, you're talking 10 million or so of this $50 million deficit. So am I correct that we have a $50 million deficit?
We're able to balance the books with our revolving credit agreement.
Yeah, that's what a deficit is. Yeah. Okay.
Member Ford, I think you also had another question. Well, one is we often carry forward sort of IOUs for all of the projects because we don't pay everything out up front, right? We're reimbursement basis. So as we're monitoring the schedules, we do our best guess when they come through you based on their schedule, how much they get per year. If it's a 3-year project, let's say we divide it over 3 years. As we watch them moving more slowly, we adjust when we'll pay them back. So it's not always reflected in the current year budget, how much we would pay out. We do have a mid-year budget, which is the item before that Lily just brought. Normally, I think we'd go maybe the month prior even to you, where if we need to readjust either up or down on revenues or expenditures, we do it mid-year. I think you also asked why we weren't projecting sales tax to increase. Is that right? Oh, no, I missed that one. Okay. Like, I wish, but not yet. Go out and shop after the meeting.
Member Bars?
Thank you. So I have one question, but Member Ford's really thoughtful question I have 2 questions. So questions grow, just multiply. So sounds like Okay, we have a revolving credit agreement, which it's normal to use and draw down in this instance where there is a deficit. Just how significant is the $50 million deficit? Like, have we been in situations in previous years where there have been $50 million between expenditures and revenues? Or is this an aberration?
This is not an abnormal
Okay.
budget process, and we do include drawdown of anticipated revolving credit agreements in each year.
Okay, so this is normal. Do you just offhand know what the difference was last year at this time? Or is that hard?
Lily, would have been 65, what we assumed for the revolver.
Okay.
You know, just maybe think, Member Bartlett, totally forgot, last month, Amelia Wally was here with the Prop L strategic plan. And if you go through that year by year, you can see that we would technically be in deficit if we were on PAYGO. We are assuming throughout there, we use a revolver. When we fully draw that down, we issue a bond, and then we cycle back. So there are debt assumptions in there, and that's sort of like the max envelope. And each time we come to, we shrink it.
Okay, all right, so this is standard operating procedure, because the two big numbers did jump out at me as well, and I had similar questions to Member Ford, so thank you, that's very, very helpful, thank you for that answer. I just wanted to say it was very helpful to have the work program slides included in this presentation. It was a helpful reminder of all of the great work that the SFCTA does, and so thank you for that. I did just want to ask about some of the big planning studies that are underway. Like, when should we anticipate an update on, say, the Geary 19th Avenue subway and regional connection study?
Rachel Hyatt, Deputy for Planning. Yes, so that study is just starting now. In the chair's report, she shared that we are in the procurement process or the recruitment process on two of the initial aspects of the study. One is recruiting for the community council membership, 12-member body that will advise us from community perspective on all aspects of the study. So that we expect to form by the end of May. And they're going to be with us throughout the study. The other thing that we are procuring right now is for the technical professional services. So the engineering, planning, design team that will support us. And we expect to have that team on board this summer. And so then the work will begin. I do not have a month at this time when we would bring an update to this body, Citizen Advisory body. I will consult with my team and we can follow up on that.
Great, thank you. Member Kim?
Yeah, this is not a similar question about the but expenditure revenue. So I just I want to check my understanding. So using revolving credit is the normal process. So between issuing bond, CTA use revolving credit. So once almost use up the revolving credit means it's about time to reissue the bond. So using revolving credit is not just deficit, kind of a tool to respond funding. Am I understand correct?
You explained it better than I did, yes. Because sometimes, or maybe this is always true, Lily can correct me, when you issue a bond, if we did it before the project's billed us, there's a certain time frame we have to spend down the bond proceeds to keep it a tax-exempt bond. And we don't want to risk that. So we collect all the expenses with the short-term revolver, and then we sort of refund that with the bond. And I will add, we do look at the market conditions each time, Member Kim. So a long time ago in the past, the market was such that we held on. We just kept redoing revolvers for a while because that was cheaper. But if the conditions are different, we'll issue a bond.
Yeah, so we understand. So thank you for the members. Our multiple questions. Finally, we get what's going on, and then that's the kind of strategies. When the interest rate is really low or going down, issuing bond might help. But like right now is a fluctuation. Maybe you better wait until market is stable through the using revolving credit. This makes sense. Now we understand. Thank you.
I also really appreciate having all the items in the work program listed out. It's a good holistic view of things that we've talked about over the last several years. I was wondering, with the note about you will be seeking neighborhood transportation program funding to advance recommendations from previous studies that have already been adopted. Is that generally incumbent on the SFCTA as opposed to like the district supervisor's office making sure that these programs advance and get funded once recommendations have been adopted?
I'll let Anna answer that one.
Yeah, the neighborhood use of the neighborhood program funds is always at the discretion and the direction of the district supervisor. So, so it would be up to the office about whether it might be that it funds an early phase of the project, for example, to position high scoring or high priority recommendations in a plan. It could fund the further planning or a design phase to position a project to compete for a discretionary grant for construction, or it could serve as the local match.
Okay, great. So the projects that are listed are ones that we anticipate the district supervisor's office to request funds for implementing the recommendations in the next budget cycle.
Oh, I think the reference was the District 5 and Octavia and Ocean. Is that what you're referring to, Chair Siegel?
That's one of the ones that's listed. This is more of a general question about all the ones that are listed here.
Let me, I can clarify then. Thank you for repeating the question. The supervisor may come back and ask for additional funds to advance the next phase, but also I think what we meant here is now that the plan's done, we work with their office to see if we can secure discretionary funding, which may still need a match from NTIP, but that would be better to get outside funding as well.
I see. Okay. Thank you. That makes sense. And then specifically on the Octavia circulation study, is that different from the Octavia improvement study that we talked about a few years ago, or is that the same? That's the same study? Oh.
That's the same study, and actually the recommendations are funded through other sources as well, through land sale revenues.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Member Kim, is your card still up from the last question, or? Okay, great. Are there any other questions or comments on this item from members? Is there any public comment in the room on this item?
Yes, thank you. My initial reaction to the grant funding was every level of government is broke, but we're saying that we have guarantees on the current grant funding, so I'll accept that, but I really am very cautious on the fact that, in my estimation, every level of government is broke, including the state, because they're going out for trying to get more bonds and things. Regarding the revolving credit, one way or another, we're paying interest on whatever drawdown there is. So, you know, I don't think we want to consider that as quote unquote free money. You know, I mean, it's going to cost us something, and also you have to budget that with, well, is the inflation cost of the project going to increase? So, well, okay, we have to bite our tongue and take the revolving credit and pay the lower amount. Regarding travel demand, we're talking about a diary that is going to be created. That just says, well, I traveled from here to there. What always amazes me is, and I look out the window out there sometimes and see all the traffic going there, I say, wait a minute, if you're stuck in traffic, what motivates you to stay in traffic, listen to KCBS, and hear all the delays, and but people will still continue to drive, as opposed to saying, gee, you know, if there was a regional express bus system here, maybe I would consider the 10 minutes of inconvenience to get to the transit and the regional bus system, and then be able to get on a faster route, reducing my overall
Thank you for your
travel
comment.
time. So that, I think, we're really missing one aspect, is what's motivating people. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any remote public comment on this item?
There's no remote public comment on this item.
Great. Public comment on item 7 is closed, and this was an information item, so thank you again so much for the presentation. Moving on to item 8, this is the Vision Zero Freeway Ramp Study Update, and this is an information item. And we have Rachel Hyatt, Deputy Director for Planning, here with us to present this item.
Hi again, we do. And we also have my colleague, Amy Thompson, who is a planner on our team. And really, I am presenting on behalf of Project Manager Eliza Paz. So giving them, they're the real leads of the study. So this work is a third phase of similar work that the SFCTA has led in past years, and it's funded by a federal, oh gosh, okay, this is, yes, thank you. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, this picture is important. There's a picture here. It's funded by a federal Safe Streets for All grant, which focuses on pedestrian and bicycle safety, Vision Zero, and addressing Vision Zero with quick build projects as the planning phase. And there are implementation phases of this grant that have been available in the past. We matched it with Prop L, and the focus of this, thank you, is on all of these locations in the city. So the previous phases that we have led focused on the south of Market. So this phase is not looking at south of Market. Other locations where our freeway ramps touch down on our city streets and are part of the high injury network. So that was the criteria for identifying. That's how these locations were identified, and there are 11 of them. So it's a lot. What we've done for outreach purposes is sort of group the locations into more sort of general neighborhoods. And when we are talking with communities and seeking feedback, we have created the opportunity to go into detail about these locations in those outreach conversations, which is really too much to go into in a setting like this today. These are the previous phases that have all moved on to implementation, and these were the locations in the south of Market. So we're at the first phase of the study, and we are seeking input at this time on the study goals and the evaluation framework for assessing and comparing improvements. We are looking for input on the needs and opportunities and conditions, experiences at these locations, and sharing the technical work that we've done on that front, and then seeking feedback on anything else. And we're sharing the toolkit of treatments that we will be considering for the locations. These are the proposed goals for the study. The toolkits that we're considering include our basic SFMTA, our basic quick build toolkit. So MTA and Caltrans are both partners on this study because they will both be closely involved, and they will be approvers for the implementation. So that's one of the reasons we are leading this study, is because Caltrans is an approving agency for pretty much everything that we're going to be considering in these areas. The pedestrian and bicycle quick build toolkit includes things like crosswalk and other pedestrian treatment visibility, lighting, and protection from vehicles for bikes and pedestrians. but these are ramp locations at our freeway network, and so there's also a toolkit of traffic management and operations that we'll consider, and a lot of this is about making sure that vehicle movements are clear and safe and speed controlled as necessary, and that there's protection for vulnerable road users at these locations. We want to make sure that the traffic circulation has, its clear space to operate, but also where there is, in a lot of these locations, a lot of excess concrete, right, or poor visibility. We want to take this opportunity to address those as well. We're in the first phase of the study and conducting outreach now through mid-May, and please share this with anyone that you might know who would be interested. We're attending a lot of community-based organization meetings, but we also have in-person town halls that will focus on the ramp locations in those general areas more specifically. And we will be back again later in the year, towards the end of the year, with draft improvement concepts for input, and we'll be back to this body at that time as well. And now I'll take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Member Bars.
Great. Thank you, Chair. That was convenient. I didn't get that to balance. So thank you for the presentation. I'm truly delighted to see this moving forward. So really, thank you very much. I have two questions. My first question is, why is the focus near-term improvements? It seems like this could be an opportunity to think big. So why are we focusing on near-term improvements?
Yeah, so this grantor does want a focus on quick builds. They want to see improvements soon. So what they're trying to avoid is sort of funding plans that don't get implemented. They want to see quick build. Now that said, we do through this study want to raise up opportunities for long-term permanent changes as well. So we are anticipating doing that in not at all locations. Some of these there's a few locations that are more simple, and then others that are very, very complex. And so we will identify those, but with our budget, I can't commit that we would actually be able to design out permanent designs that are Caltrans approvable within this framework. I think what we can do is identify them.
Okay, I appreciate that. That makes sense, and that's because Caltrans is the funder. Is that why?
It's the U.S. DOT. It's a federal grant that does go through Caltrans, but Caltrans is very involved because some of these funds run through them, and like for implementation, and they are an approver because this is in their right of way. Much of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense. So, okay. So now my second question, and then I'm going to make a comment. So my second question is the toolkit. How is that defined?
Thank you. Great question. We're using MTA's Quick Build Toolkit as the basis, just the basic place to start. It's not a limiter, but it is our basic starting point. And then the what I called the Traffic Management Operations Toolkit, I think that's the types of things that we already anticipate wanting to consider. So none of those are a cap on what we would consider, but the starting point.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So so now my comment. I would like very much, as a resident of D7 and someone who lives very close to one of these ramps, where one of my neighbors was killed about 18 months ago, would very much like to see some recognition of the fact that the concrete and the structures of these ramps won't last forever. And I think we should start weighing what is the opportunity cost of this land, what is the access. Yes, we're making improvements to manage the safety around these ramps, which we need to, but do we really need all of the ramps in the way that they are configured today? I think that's important to wrestle with in some way within the limitations of your funding, and I appreciate your answer.
Okay, thank you, and we can do that.
Yeah, okay, thank you, that's great, wonderful. I would also ask, and I know that this is not always common in planning studies, but it's a theme in my questioning and comments that I'm bringing to this committee now, is to try to focus on at least the numbers of people who we're affecting with these projects. Okay. And that can be both in terms of like the cost side, like, okay, the 10,000 people are going to have to go 2 minutes slower, but it also really helps in the benefit side as well. Like, you know, maybe 15,000 people will have a safer walk home, or I don't know, like maybe you could extend that to a projection of now we're 33% less likely to, you know, have another fatality, like my friend of a friend. I think that that's a really important way to start framing these improvements. So that's my other request.
Yes, okay, thank you, and I am so sorry to hear about your neighbor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Member Ortega?
Hi, yes, I wanted to thank you guys for the study and for the survey. I'll send that to my friends and pass out the good word. I did want to just make an additional comment regarding, I believe you identified it as number 1 on the slides, the exit in the Glen Park area. I don't know if it's in your purview, but I would also like to see that exit leads to, I think it's San Jose Avenue. I would actually really appreciate seeing the study kind of continue along that path, because that is one of the things that's particularly scary about driving on that road, and that's my exit. I live in the Noe Valley area, is you're getting off a highway, but you kind of basically put onto like a fake highway, but there's also a bike lane. There's also an overpass. This leads into like a residential neighborhood of like 20 miles per hour. I have no idea why people would bike on this road. They claim the speed limit is 40 miles per hour. I regularly see people going 60. And then it leads to a traffic light, which is right near the J, and then leads to the traffic light of my nightmares, because you have to go across the street, and then you have to get into this left turn lane at the next street, because there's a street that doesn't exist except for it just becomes a street. And now I need to go find a map because I can't remember the name of it. I can tell you the turn off the top of my head, though. And you end up with your car sitting at a left turn lane on the J Muni tracks. And that's not good. On like 8 levels of not good. And I think that street, that San Jose street, where that exit 1 is, really should be looked at too, because what happens is everyone's driving the highway speed. They get off, the road infrastructure doesn't stop you from driving the highway speed. And if you happen to get a green light, now you're having people drive into the Mission and Noe Valley like 3 times the legal speed limit. But the road infrastructure can't change it. So I don't know if it's possible, but that is my comment and recommendation, is that area needs a lot more work, not just at the exact exit, but along that whole stretch.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of arterials or approaches in this study where that is the case. So Bayshore is brought up as one, Alamany, you know, there's so many of them. We are not going to be able to address full corridors in this work. We just won't. But similar, we can identify them and put, you know, and while we could design it with this study, we can produce recommendations and put visibility to those type issues in presenting to our board. And
great. Then I just request you add that onto the presentation whenever this is done.
Chair, may I just respond to Member Ortega's comment? So I know this is a rhetorical question, but I rode on that bike lane today, this morning, in fact, and I just thought that I would share for the room what the thought process in my mind was like when I made that decision, because it is very stressful, and I did that because it is the most direct way to get to where I want to go. My other options are not as direct. And so even though Slow Arlington exists and is a good connection, it is not nearly as like, you have other conflict points that you have to navigate to do it. And so San Jose Avenue is the most direct, but I do not do it lightly, and I never ride with my son on my bike when I do it, because it is simply, I've just had too many close calls.
Member Margarita?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate your presentation. I really super appreciate the outreach that is going to occur this summer, and I see that you're doing the town halls at the different libraries. I was going to ask one if you can include the Mission Library as well, since this is also going to affect Mission residents, and two, if the SFCTA survey, if it's multilingual. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, it is multilingual. It's available in Spanish and Chinese. And also, we really appreciate your suggestions on locations for outreach. We'll be able to include that suggestion in our outreach location sort of inventory for this and other studies. Thank you.
And last follow-up questions. I know that you said that you're reaching out to different community-based organizations to have people talk with you all. What community-based organizations have you guys reached out to?
It's a pretty long list, but we have this list actually because another member, we can share it with the whole, Maria can share it with the whole CAC. I think many people are interested in this. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Apologize, I didn't see whose card went up next. Member Milford Rosales?
I just wanted to thank you all very much for the presentation, for the work that's going on here. I'm very excited for it. Just a very brief comment, but we've had a couple times before this body and before other bodies in the city incidents that involve a high number of highway off-ramps at major transit interchange, like transfer points. I would just appreciate if you could include language or some kind of prioritization or something. Like we had our fatality on 4th and King almost 2 years ago, transferring between a very high ridership Muni line and Caltrain. And like I've been commuting to City College this winter, spring, and like transferring, getting from BART to City College campus, or even just transferring to the K or something there is like, there's all kinds of stuff going on there, like just nonstop. Like it's, I would just appreciate some kind of statement or priority about how when people are choosing to take transit for their trips, they shouldn't be exposed to the most dangerous situations that you can be in from cars. There could be some statement or acknowledgement about that for those relevant ramps. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And so I see this as part of the goals and evaluation framework that we would be considering the transit ridership as part of the benefit and weight to the improvements.
Member Ford?
Thanks. I wanted to sort of just follow up and endorse some of what Member Barr said about the toolkit and considering the land use around these urban parcels, and is 9 freeway ramps in a mile necessary? And then also I noticed that there's no toolkit that would back onto the freeway. We talked about this with I think the Ocean Ave exit, where the safety problems are actually in the freeway and in the on-off ramp distances and signaling. And I was wondering if, given that this is a partnership with Caltrans, that could be considered in scope, so it's not just classic and pedestrians, it's also talking about the way the driver experience is.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, we can. Yeah.
I was wondering, would we ever consider certain things like, I agree with the sentiment that we should consider the long-term viability of how the freeway interacts with the city streets, and we should think about slowing people down before they get to those intersections. But for you know, immediate term improvements, things like crosswalk improvements or like ADA accessible curb ramps, would we ever consider just saying, like, we think these should be at every place where they could be, and we don't need to, like, do a study about it, and then maybe for, you know, other treatments that do require specific considerations for the specific site, like, that's what the study is about? Is there, like, ever a time where it wouldn't make sense to make, like, a curb accessible or a crosswalk more visible?
Yeah, well, I appreciate your question, and I don't think I actually have the answer to that because it sounds like an approach like daylighting where, you know, it's just global. And yes, I'm not aware of a similar sort of global, you know, authorization to do something like that for these other types of treatments. But I appreciate the idea, and we'll give that some thought.
Great, yeah, would we be the people to make that determination, or does that have to be from Caltrans? Like, or could we say, like, every, you know, freeway that touches down in San Francisco should have these things at a baseline, and then we will study additional improvements that make sense at the spot locations. I would just encourage us, if we have the authority to do that, I would just encourage us to consider doing that, as opposed to that we don't have to spend the time and the money to talk about things that we think are very obvious. Yeah, great, thank you. Member Margarita, did you have a follow-up question?
Thank you. Sorry, I just noticed I misread this. I thought that there was going to be a town hall also in the Bayview, but I don't see one there, and so I was just going to suggest to add the Mission Library and also the library in the Bayview district, if possible, since it's also another community that's being affected as well, just so that they can be included. Thank you.
Thank you. Got that. Appreciate that.
I'm sorry, for folks online, that was a request to include a Mission Library and a Bayview location as well.
Specifically the Bayview, the library in the Bayview. Yeah, thank you so much.
Are there any other questions or comments from members on this item? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment in the room on this item?
Yes, thank you, Edward Mason. My comments are going to be slightly facetious, but down in Palo Alto, about a week and a half ago, the pedestrian and signal signs were hacked. So the Zuck and Musk, instead of saying you can walk, they gave a little message, and it was publicized in the Palo Alto and paper. So when you press the button to walk, you know, hey, I'm Zuck, you know, I'm gonna, you know, do all wonderful things for you, and Musk and all. So, I mean, that's what I still have not been able to see anything on how that was hacked technologically. But somehow, you know, when I saw this, that was the first thing that came to mind. Make sure that the pedestrian signal improvements are not hackable for that. So I just want to share that bit of levity with the group. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any remote public comment on this item?
There is no remote public comment for this item.
Great. Public comment is closed, and thanks again so much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. That puts us on item 9, introduction of new business. Do any CAC members have any new business? Member Bars?
Thank you, Chair Siegel. So today, the Budget and Legislative Analyst published a policy analysis report in response to Chair Melgar's inquiry about the economic costs and fiscal impacts of traffic collisions in San Francisco. The headline here is that between 2018 and 2022, essentially $2.5 billion, that's billion with a B, was attributed in economic losses, either paid out by private insurers or the city, or borne by individuals
because of the collisions that happened within San Francisco. In particular, I'm very concerned by the roughly $60 million that was paid out due to collisions associated with city vehicles. That is double the annual budget that the SFMTA pays out for streets work. So I was hoping that we could get a presentation from, at a minimum, the individuals who prepared this report from the budget and legislative analysts to speak about the implications of traffic collisions in our city.
Member Margarita? Earlier? Okay. Any other members have any new business? Is there any public comment on new business? Operators, any remote public comment on this item?
There is no remote public comment.
Great, thank you so much. Puts us on item 10, which is general public comment. General public comment on items under the Transportation Authority, CAC's purview that are not otherwise agendized at this meeting. Is there any public comment in the room?
Yes, thank you. Edward Mason again. This afternoon, I was at the library and came across the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition had sent an email, and in there they were soliciting city or schools for the bike and roll to school program that they were going to have. And in that it said this was going to be for bikes, scooters, skateboards, and wheelchairs. I looked at that and said, when did we obligate money for scooters and skateboards to go to school on? I have to go back and look and see what we did and what's MTA doing with the money that we're giving them. Because, one, scooters and skateboards, in my estimation, from my observations, are running rampant now on the sidewalks, creating hazards, and this is unbelievable if this is true. And did we authorize any of that? And why is the Bicycle Coalition going off and requesting this? So with the proliferation of micromobility devices, I think there needs to be some control on it. And in the Wayback Machine, when I had my first bicycle, I had to go down to City Hall and pay 50 cents for a decal to put on the fender of my bicycle. And I've provided a photo of the fender to the MTA. So, you know, it really happened years ago where you had to go and pay 50 cents. You say, what's 50 cents? Well, I was a quart of milk back then. But I just wanted to share this with you that we need to review what the Bicycle Coalition is doing with our funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any remote public comment?
There is no remote public comment for this item.
Great, public comment is closed, and that puts us on item 11, which is adjournment. Thank you all. This meeting is now adjourned.